Hello everyone, I'm Diego and I'm one out of 3 triplet flames who are rainbow star people, and welcome to this YouTube channel. If you haven't yet, please like this video and subscribe to this YouTube channel for more content like this. Now to today's video, which is about how I have combined the raw vegan diet with the Jain diet. So the Jain diet is based on the principle of ahimsa, or non-violence, and the idea is you want to be non-violent to all sentient beings. So basically you want to be as non-violent to living beings as possible and still eat in a way that is nourishing. Now the Jain diet includes cooked foods and dairy products such as milk. And I don't eat cooked food. I also don't consume any dairy products because I find that consuming dairy is not ecologically sustainable. People are literally destroying the Amazon rainforest just to make room for cattle farms. And basically now that they're destroying the Amazon rainforest, there's less oxygen being produced in the air because there's less photosynthesis happening, and that's really bad. And also there's more methane in the air than before because the cattle produce methane, and that's contributing to global warming. And the thing is, when you have plants that take CO2 out of the air, that decreases global warming because it gets rid of the carbon dioxide in the air that causes global warming. So having methane and carbon dioxide in the air results in global warming. And also having fossil fuel emissions, that also contributes to global warming as well as other things too. So that is why I don't consume dairy, is because it's not ecological or sustainable to consume dairy. I also don't think it's healthy for me to consume dairy considering that I'm lactose intolerant. And I just don't like the taste of dairy either, so. All right. So I'm going to talk about what you can and cannot eat as a Jain diet, raw vegan diet person. So I personally follow this list, at least I've been following this list for the past approximately 2 months. So I haven't been eating mushrooms, nutritional yeast, fungi, carrots, celery, onions, garlic, ginger, turmeric, beets, radishes, all root vegetables, vinegar, eggplants, figs, all sprouts, peanuts, broccoli, cauliflower, spinach, green onions, cactus, agave, seaweed, and fermented foods. And the reason for not consuming these things is the idea is that when you are picking root vegetables out of the ground, you're disrupting the bacteria in the ground, and you are essentially eating a sentient plant, and you're eating a sentient being. So the idea is you don't want to eat sentient beings. And when you eat fermented foods, you're eating hundreds of tiny little bacteria. And by eating all of this bacteria, you're also killing a lot of bacteria. So that's the premise based on some of these things. If you want to look more into it, you can feel free to look up Jainism and the reasons as to why people who follow the Jain diet don't consume those things. And I'm going to get into that a little bit more, but I am also going to talk about what someone who is both raw vegan and follows the Jain diet can eat. By the way, I'm also going to say, people who follow the Jain diet usually only eat before sunset or after sunrise. And this is because the idea is that when the sun sets, bacteria accumulates on your food. And by eating more bacteria, you're killing more bacteria. So if you eat only during the day, you're killing less bacteria, and thus you're not harming as many lives. Now, that being said, I live up north where the sun sets really early when it gets closer to December. Like the sun sets at like 4 o'clock in December. And sometimes it's not realistic for me to eat before sunset. So I've been a little bit more flexible in that regard, where there have been some days where I've eaten after sunset because the sun sets earlier when you're up north and it gets closer to winter. So anyways, I'm going to talk about what you can eat if you follow the raw vegan and Jain diet. So you can eat fruits except for figs and eggplants. So the reason not to eat figs is because I believe that when you produce a fig, a wasp goes inside of the fig, and then it doesn't get out of the fig, and it just ends up dying inside of the fig, and then the fig ends up becoming a fruit. And the reason for not eating eggplants is because eggplants have a lot of seeds. Now I'm going to get into this a little bit more to explain why I think that's a little bit silly, but that is the idea behind the Jain diet. So also what people who follow the raw vegan and Jain diet, who combine both raw veganism and Jainism together, they can also consume date syrup, certain green vegetables that are harvested without killing the whole plant. So certain leafy greens, like for example, you can consume arugula if the arugula has been trimmed off of the plant without killing the whole plant. Except for spinach. Spinach is one of the few exceptions. You can consume nuts except for peanuts, all seeds, zucchini, yellow squash, tomatoes, raw sugar snap peas, raw green beans, raw fava beans, sweet corn, bloomed wild rice, raw soaked oats, any unsprouted, scored or soaked grains, vegetables that can be picked above ground without killing the plant, any raw plant food that can be eaten without killing the whole plant. So all of those things can be consumed if you follow both the Jain diet and raw vegan diet. Now I'm going to critique some of the principles of the Jain diet because I think it's important to talk about what I personally believe. Because, you know, certain religions, like you might follow certain beliefs if you are of that religion. I personally am spiritual. I'm not so much affiliated with any religion in particular. I am the friend of the Rochester Zen Center, and the people at the Rochester Zen Center all eat vegetarian. But I personally believe that every life is equal. So I think that the life of an unsprouted seed, like a pumpkin seed, is equal to the life of an onion. Now, is the onion more sentient than the pumpkin seed? Yes, but both of them have a soul inhabiting them. So for example, eating an entire bowl of chia pudding, that costs hundreds of lives because all of those tiny little seeds have a soul inside of them. Whereas if you eat one onion, you're only killing one thing. If you're eating an entire bowl of chia pudding, which is permissible in the raw vegan and Jain diet, you're killing hundreds of lives. Versus if you eat only one onion, you're only killing one life. So that's why I'm saying it's not equal. It's not equal if you're eating hundreds of little seeds versus eating one onion, in the sense that you're killing hundreds of lives versus killing only one life. So that's my one critique, that eating a root vegetable only costs one life versus eating hundreds of tiny little seeds, or even eating things like tahini or almond butter, which is permissible in the Jain diet, or eating chia seeds, or eating sunflower seeds or pumpkin seeds. That's eating hundreds of tiny little plant lives, and that costs hundreds of lives, versus if you're eating just one root vegetable, that only costs you one life. So I personally believe it's better to eat in a way that costs the least amount of lives possible. That's personally, I think, what would make more sense. Also, the other critique I have, when you eat certain fruits, those fruits contain seeds. Like, for example, if you're eating an organic apple, those apples contain seeds. And if you toss the apple core and throw it away, or put it even in the compost, and the apple seeds don't grow and they rot, or they dry up and don't grow, you're killing those tiny little apple seeds. Versus if you eat an onion, that only costs one life. Versus when you kill a bunch of tiny apple seeds inside an apple core, that costs like maybe, let's say, 6 or 7 lives, depending on how many apple seeds there are in there. So again, that's my critique. Eating fruit does not necessarily cost less lives than eating a root vegetable. So this whole idea that fruits are superior to vegetables, I just don't think that's really that accurate. Like, if you're eating a seedless fruit, like a seedless orange or a seedless clementine or a banana, that doesn't cost any lives at all. That is like the most karma-free thing you could possibly eat. So eat plenty of those. Eat plenty of clementines, eat plenty of bananas, eat plenty of seedless oranges, and eat plenty of seedless grapes, because all those things don't cost any lives at all. Because you're not killing any seeds, you're not killing any plant lives, you're just nourishing your body with wonderful goodness. So yeah, that's personally what I believe. That's why I kind of critique the Jain diet a little bit. I don't think necessarily eating nuts and seeds is better than eating root vegetables, because eating nuts and seeds actually costs way more plant lives than eating one root vegetable. That's just personally what I believe. You don't have to believe the same thing as me. You can believe whatever you want. But that is just personally my critique surrounding the raw vegan and Jain diet when you combine the two together. Also, I talked to my psychiatric nurse practitioner today, and she said that she thinks that I should eat a more varied diet. So she thinks that I should include fermented foods in my diet and root vegetables. I'm still thinking about it. I haven't made my decision yet regarding whether or not I want to eat root vegetables and fermented foods. But I will say that eating fermented foods does protect your gut microbiome, and it gives you good probiotics, which is good for your gut and for your intestine. And actually having enough probiotics in your intestine protects your immune system, and it protects your brain health and mental health, because all of that is linked together. The way you eat affects your mental health, and it affects your brain health, and it also affects your immune system. So I actually got sick 3 times in a row within the past month and a half. And I think it's because I haven't been eating things like ginger, onions, garlic, and fermented foods. I haven't been eating any of those things. And I've gotten sick so many times. You can even hear the way that I have congestion still from being sick before. Like, you can hear even my voice sounds congested. And like, I think maybe had I eaten things like garlic and onions and ginger and turmeric and fermented foods such as sauerkraut, kimchi, raw vegan kimchi specifically. If I had eaten those things, maybe I wouldn't have gotten sick as much. So that's just something to keep in mind. Not every single diet out there is perfect, and all of them have their flaws. And yeah, that's all I wanted to talk about. I hope that you enjoyed this video and found this video stimulating for your brain and made you think a little bit about your own personal choices when it comes to eating. And until next time, see y'all later, everybody. Goodbye. Peace out. Much love and may all be free. Mwah.